They didn't mean to crash, at least that's what the transmission said, half garbled, broken by static, and laced with a strange desperation that felt all too human. It was the middle of the night when the first call came in, quiet and shaky, routed through a satellite system that didn't even exist in our registry. Government officials scrambled. Military aircraft were deployed, and deep beneath the stars, nestled into a remote forest clearing, something truly alien lay smoldering under the canopy, half buried in earth and mystery. Dr. Lena Hart, a seasoned wildlife veterinarian known for her work in conflict zones and disaster areas, had no idea what she was walking into. She got the call at 2:37 a.m., an emergency request from an undisclosed agency asking for her immediate assistance in a sensitive biological event. They were vague, urgent, and oddly nervous. But they didn't ask her to come alone. That struck her as strange. By dawn, Lena was on board a sleek, unmarked chopper flying over the Appalachian wilderness. Her only company, two silent men in dark uniforms and a steel briefcase that clicked every time they shifted. She didn't ask questions. She knew better. The site was sealed off like something out of a movie. Black vehicles, satellite dishes, figures in hazmat suits. And in the center of it all, a metallic structure half sunk into the dirt, steaming and humming softly, as if breathing. The crash hadn't just knocked out trees. It had scorched the air, left an electromagnetic echo that fried local electronics, and gave birds seizures. But the real mystery wasn't the ship. It was what they found inside. 3 beings, clearly injured. Not quite insect, not quite mammal, tall, spindly, bioluminescent in the low light, and terrified. They weren't armed, they weren't hostile. They were clutching their wounds, whispering to one another in a clicking language no one could decipher. They were scared, but they weren't alone. One of the soldiers posted near the wreck had stumbled upon something just off the clearing. His voice shook as he radioed in, something big, breathing heavy, watching. That's when they saw it. A massive creature lying at the edge of the woods, half conscious, bleeding from its side. It looked like some sort of predator, muscular, sharp-toothed, its body covered in matted fur and old scars. The alien medics panicked the moment they saw it. They began clicking wildly, retreating behind their downed ship, trembling. They refused to go near the creature. One of them even collapsed, convulsing in fear. To the aliens, this animal, whatever it was, had to be the apex predator of the planet. They were convinced it was hunting them. But to Lena, it was just a dog. Well, something dog-like at least. It had familiar features, large paws, expressive eyes, a pronounced rib cage. But there was something off. Its limbs were longer than they should have been. Its chest seemed evolved, almost human in its expressions. It wasn't native, and yet it wasn't completely foreign either. It was shivering, injured, and barely breathing. Lena crouched beside it, gently pressing her hand against its side. Broken ribs, shallow pulse, a puncture wound near the hip. Whatever had happened, this creature hadn't attacked. It had been caught in the wreckage. Maybe it had tried to help. Maybe it had been drawn in by the lights, the sound, the energy. And now it was dying. The alien medics refused to assist. They cowered behind crates and tech panels, watching in horror as Lena examined the creature. One of them even raised a kind of energy shield between them and the injured animal, shaking its head furiously. They tried to warn her. To them, she was walking up to a nightmare. To them, this being was death incarnate, but Lena only sighed. "It's not dangerous," she said calmly. "It's just scared." The agents exchanged worried looks. The medics hissed and chirped in protest. And Lena reached for her bag. She'd treated bears shot by poachers, wolves caught in steel traps, even elephants with landmine wounds. Fear wasn't new to her. Pain wasn't new to her. But this was different. This wasn't just about medicine. This was about trust. And right now, the strangest creature she had ever seen was putting all of its trust in her. She knew what they were all thinking. The military wanted to sedate it. The aliens wanted it gone. One official even whispered about containment protocols, but none of them moved. Not while Lena was kneeling beside it, murmuring soft words as she cleaned the wound. And then, the creature opened its eyes. They were deep, dark, and unmistakably intelligent. They met Lena's gaze with a mix of fear and recognition. Not like a wild animal, not like a monster, but like something that had been through war and was tired of fighting. She didn't flinch. She just kept working, her voice soft, her hands steady. But in the shadows beyond the tree line, something else was watching. Another shape, taller, still, almost invisible. And it wasn't afraid. That's when the power cut out. Every light, every monitor. The humming from the wreck stopped. The air went still. The forest held its breath. And from the silence came a single, strange sound, like breathing. Not from the creature on the ground, but from the thing in the dark. Everyone froze. And then Lena heard it, a whisper, not in English, not in any language she knew, but she understood it, because it was calling her name. Lena froze. The whisper wasn't loud. It was barely a breath, as if someone had spoken directly into her thoughts. Her name, Lena, was drawn out, soft, almost pleading. She turned her head slowly, scanning the tree line. But there was nothing, just the dense wall of shadow and green. Still, she felt it. Something was there. Something watching, not just with eyes, but with understanding. It didn't feel hostile. Not exactly. But it wasn't safe either. The silence that followed made every second stretch like hours. Behind her, the injured creature gave a weak groan. Its eyes flickered shut again, and Lena's instincts pulled her focus back. She pressed gently along its ribcage, checking for internal bleeding. It was cold, which was strange. Not cold like shock. Cold like it wasn't used to this climate. Like its body was built for a different atmosphere entirely. She whispered softly to it, the same way she would to a wild animal, in distress. It didn't move, but its breathing calmed slightly. That was something. The military crew nearby was growing restless. Lena could hear the tension in their clipped voices. One of the men, Agent Cole, square jaw, eyes like stone, was speaking into a headset, probably reporting the power loss. Another agent, Ramirez, stood by with his hand on his sidearm. The alien medics still refused to approach. One had collapsed completely, clutching what looked like a glowing medallion across its chest, rocking back and forth. The others huddled behind a screen of shimmering blue light, watching Lena as if she were mad. To them, she must have looked like someone trying to hug a bomb. "What the hell is it?" Ramirez muttered, not really asking anyone. No one answered. Lena wasn't sure herself. The creature was definitely not native to Earth, but it wasn't one of them either, not like the medics. Its physiology was different, more physical, less tech-dependent. If she didn't know better, she might have said it was built for combat. But nothing in its body language said predator. It didn't growl, didn't snap, didn't resist. It just lay there, eyes full of something closer to regret than aggression. She reached into her medkit and began prepping an injection, basic antibiotics, something safe. The alien medics shrieked in protest. One slammed its hand against the shield panel, its elongated fingers twitching in panic. Lena ignored them. She was used to chaos, used to the noise that came when no one agreed on what should be done. What bothered her was the voice. That whisper. She hadn't imagined it. As she worked, her mind drifted back to the flight here. The man who'd briefed her, Dr. Elias Grange, had been nervous. Not just in the usual government conspiracy way. He'd looked shaken. He told her only what was absolutely necessary. A craft had gone down. It was not from this world. and biological assistance was needed urgently. What he didn't mention, at least not directly, was that there had already been another incident a week earlier. Another visitor. That one had never made contact, just a signal. A warning, maybe. And now this crash. These beings. This strange, half-dog, half-human creature bleeding in the dirt. Lena had a feeling none of this was an accident. The forest rustled again. Lena looked up. Still nothing. Then her tablet buzzed, just for a second. Dead earlier. Now it flickered to life with static. Not from the satellite, not from the base. A local signal, a heartbeat monitor. It was tracking the creature. The readings were weird, too regular, not mammalian. The pulse seemed to have pauses, brief. Timed resets, like the heart rebooted itself every few minutes. She'd never seen anything like it. And then, just as quickly, the screen went dark again. That's when one of the medics broke from the group, the smallest one. It pushed past the shield barrier, chattering urgently, limbs shaking. It was terrified, but determined. It didn't look at Lena. It looked at the wounded creature. Then it dropped to its knees beside her. The other medics screamed in protest. The soldiers raised weapons, confused. But Lena lifted a hand. "Let it help," she said. The little alien pulled something from its body, like a piece of soft metal, molded into a sphere, and gently placed it on the creature's chest. It began to glow, low and blue. The creature's body twitched. A soft pulse rippled through the fur, almost like a tremor. But the alien didn't flinch. It stayed still, watching carefully, and then suddenly the pulse returned to the screen. Stronger. Steadier. "Good," Lena whispered. "Good." The small alien turned to her, eyes shining. It made a series of quiet clicks, gentle, almost grateful, and for a strange moment they understood each other. Not with words, but with presence. Then the earth shook. Not a lot, just enough. A low rumble, like something large shifting underground. The soldiers snapped into alert mode. Cole barked something into his mic. The alien medics scurried back. Lena shielded the creature's head, and from beyond the clearing, deep in the woods, came a long, low call. It wasn't an animal sound. It wasn't human. It was something in between, a signal, a reply. The creature on the ground opened its eyes again, wider this time, more alert. It looked toward the trees, then at Lena, and for the first time she saw something flash in its expression. Not pain, not fear, recognition. Whatever had made that sound, it knew it. Maybe it was part of the same species. Maybe it was a threat. Lena couldn't tell, but the creature reached out slowly with one clawed hand and grabbed hers. Everyone around her reacted instantly, weapons raised, shields up, shouts in her earpiece, but Lena didn't move, because the grip wasn't aggressive. It was desperate, like it knew what was coming, like it needed her to listen. Behind her, the ship lights flickered back on, glowing brighter than before. The medics jumped to their feet, now clicking rapidly. They were scanning the trees, aiming. Devices, panic in every movement. Whatever was out there, it wasn't alone, and it wasn't hiding anymore. Lena held her breath. The creature's grip tightened just slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to make her stay still. Its dark eyes stayed locked on hers, and though it couldn't speak, she felt the message clear as day. Don't let them. Take me. Behind her, Agent Cole was already shouting orders. Backup was called. Additional containment units were inbound. The clearing was crawling with motion. Drones zipped overhead. Spotlights blinked through the trees, and somewhere in the dark, something else, bigger, heavier, was getting closer. Ramirez stepped up beside Lena, eyes flicking nervously between her and the creature. "You need to move away from it," he said quietly, almost gently. "No," Lena said. "This isn't your call anymore." "It never was," she replied. The little alien medic beside her let out a low, stuttered chirp. It was looking toward the trees again, fear etched into every movement. Its kind had stopped trying to help. They'd backed away, forming a tight group behind the wrecked ship, their devices glowing as they frantically tapped and gestured in their own language. Lena followed their gaze. Between the trees, a shimmer. Not visible exactly, but something bending light, like heat waves rising off asphalt. It moved unnaturally, too smooth, too silent, and the forest seemed to recoil from it. Whatever was coming, even the aliens feared it. Lena turned back to the creature at her side. It was still gripping her hand. Its breathing was labored but not panicked. She could see the wound had stopped bleeding, thanks to the alien sphere still pulsing softly on its chest. But the real damage wasn't just physical. It was running. Hiding from them. And now they'd found it. The whispers in her head returned, stronger now. Not words, feelings, urgency, warning. Images flashed through her mind. Brief, jumbled visions. Burning landscapes. Strange ships fleeing through black skies. The sound of terrified voices in a language she didn't speak. And always, the same shadowed figure in the background. Watching. The creature had seen it too. It came from that. Ramirez was still standing by her side, one hand near his sidearm, but he wasn't pushing anymore. He could sense it too. That edge of a storm pressure. The kind you feel before something breaks. Then a scream, sharp, metallic, not human, cut through the clearing. Everyone spun toward the noise. One of the alien medics had collapsed, its body convulsing, limbs locked at strange angles, eyes wide with a pulsing blue glow. Its companions rushed to help, but it was no use. A dark mist, almost like static, leaked from its mouth and vanished into the air. The medic was alive, but something had reached into it. Something had seen through it. Lena turned back to the creature. It was trying to sit up, trembling, eyes darting toward the trees. It didn't want to fight. It wanted to run. But there was nowhere left to go. Suddenly, from deep in the forest came a voice. Not a scream. Not a whisper. A voice. It sounded almost human, distorted and slow, like a tape played backward. One word, then silence. Return. The aliens wailed in panic. The soldiers didn't understand, but they knew it wasn't good. Lena felt it in her bones. That word wasn't a request. It was a command. Whatever's coming, Lena said, it thinks this one belongs to it. Cole didn't respond. He was staring into the woods, pale, silent. Then the wind shifted, and for a second, something stepped forward. It was tall, towering, really, covered in armor that shimmered like glass and smoke, with limbs too long and a face that wasn't a face at all, just a smooth, expressionless mask. It didn't walk. It glided. The trees around it leaned away as it moved, and in its hand, something familiar. Lena's breath caught. It was a collar. She understood now. This creature, this dog-like being she'd been trying to save, it wasn't wild. It wasn't free. It was someone's property. She looked down at the being beside her. It looked away, ashamed. Not afraid for itself, but for her. For all of them. The collar wasn't just for control. It was a symbol. A tag. Proof that whatever species had created this thing, whatever they were, they didn't see it as a person. They saw it as a weapon, a tool, a thing to be retrieved or destroyed. Lena stood up, placing herself between the creature and the figure in the woods. Her voice was calm, but firm. You're not taking it. Cole turned sharply toward her. Lena, stand down. We don't even know what that thing is. I know enough, she said. It's not the danger here. The shimmer creature didn't move, but its mask tilted slightly, and suddenly Lena saw her own reflection in it. Then her ears popped. A pressure wave rolled through the clearing. One of the soldiers dropped to a knee, clutching his head. The aliens shrieked and scrambled to reinforce their shields, and the creature behind Lena let out a low, broken growl, more sorrow than rage. She turned to it again, pressing a hand gently to its head. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. It closed its eyes, and from its chest a tiny light pulsed outward, rippled across the ground, through the air, across every monitor and device. Every screen lit up with the same image. A planet, not Earth, and it was burning. Fleet of ships surrounded it. The same shimmer creatures were descending, grabbing, collaring, dragging. The creature had escaped, not just from a crash, from a war, from slavery, and it hadn't come to invade. It had come to beg for help. But now, the hunter had found it, and it wasn't leaving alone. The temperature dropped. Not like weather, but like the air itself knew what was coming. Everything in the clearing held its breath. Even the birds had gone silent. Lena felt the sweat on the back of her neck freeze to a chill. The shimmer creature, if it could be called that, remained still at the edge of the trees, the collar dangling from its long hand like a warning. The alien medics trembled. They had stopped trying to communicate, stopped trying to help. They knew what that being was. They had seen it before, maybe lost others to it. Their leader, the one that had placed the healing sphere, slowly backed away, keeping its gaze down, like looking directly at the figure might be dangerous. Agent Cole's radio crackled uselessly, drowned out by static. He looked pale, out of his depth, but still clinging to protocol. "I need you all to step back," he said, his voice strained but firm. No one moved. The wounded creature's chest rose and fell more steadily now, but its eyes darted around, panicked. It wanted to move, to run, but it knew it wouldn't make it far. Lena crouched next to it, hands hovering, not touching this time, just trying to keep it grounded. Human instincts screamed at her to flee, but something deeper rooted her in place. "This isn't some alien fugitive," she said out loud, though she wasn't sure who she was talking to anymore. "It was running from slavery, from war. It came here because it thought we'd help." The shimmer creature took a step forward. Not fast, not threatening, but final. The ground beneath its foot didn't even bend. It was as if it wasn't touching the earth at all. "Lena, move," Cole barked again. "Now." But she didn't. Instead, she whispered to the creature, "I need to know something. Why now? Why Earth?" It looked at her, weak but clear-eyed. And somehow she knew it wasn't chance. Earth wasn't just a crash site. It was a last resort, a place the shimmer creatures hadn't reached yet, a place they feared, not because of weapons or armies, but because of unpredictability. Of something they couldn't understand. Humans. There was a reason the medics wouldn't touch the wounded creature. It wasn't just fear of infection or violence. It was something deeper. They knew what the shimmer creature represented, what it could do. And by touching the one that fled, they risked being marked too. Suddenly, the shimmer creature raised its hand. Not in threat, but like it was calling for something. A low hum filled the air. It wasn't coming from the trees. It was coming from the sky. Lena looked up, shielding her eyes from the rising glare. Something massive was descending, slowly, silently. A ship, but not like the ones in sci-fi movies. It looked like a shadow being stretched across the sky, bending light, ignoring gravity. It wasn't mechanical. It felt alive. Panic exploded in the clearing. The alien medics began to retreat into their vessel, desperately activating some kind of cloaking field. Soldiers scrambled for cover, trying to lock weapons onto a shape that refused to stay solid. Lena stood up, shielding the creature with her body as best she could. "You're not taking it," she said again, her voice shaking. But the shimmer creature didn't acknowledge her. It was focused only on the being behind her, the one it had come for. A deep sound pulsed through the air, like a heartbeat made of thunder, and then a beam of pale light opened from the ship above. It wasn't solid. It shimmered like a liquid thread, reaching down toward the ground. Lena knew what it was, a retrieval system. The shimmer creature began walking forward, slow but sure, dragging the collar behind it. The ground beneath it warped slightly as it moved, reacting to its presence. Then, without warning, the injured creature behind Lena spoke. Not in words, not in sound, but in memory. Lena's mind flooded with visions, of cages, of brutal training, of forced hunts across alien worlds, of the moment it broke free, of other beings like it, caged, tortured, some gone completely mad, and then of Earth, the blue planet it had seen in hidden files. A place known for chaos, yes, but also for resistance, for strange kindness, for second chances. It hadn't come here for war. It had come to surrender, not to authorities, to humanity, to the only species left unbroken. Lena's knees buckled from the weight of it. Her vision blurred, but she didn't fall. The shimmer creature stepped into the beam. The light wrapped around it gently, but its gaze remained locked on the creature behind Lena, still waiting, still expecting it to crawl back. The collar it held floated upward, suspended in the beam, and that's when the air changed again, not colder, but sharper. From the far side of the clearing, a blast of wind tore through the trees, and another figure appeared, not shimmered, not armored, but human. Dr. Elias Grange, breathless, mud-covered, holding something in both hands, a small cube, metallic, faintly glowing. Lena recognized it. Earth's first recovered alien tech prototype, unstable, not fully understood, and very, very powerful. "Lena!" he shouted, his voice raw. "Move!" But she couldn't, because the creature behind her was standing now, slowly. Shaking, no longer hiding. It wasn't running anymore. It was choosing. And everyone was about to find out what that meant. The wind roared through the trees as the creature stood fully upright, its thin frame trembling but no longer with fear. It took a step forward, and Lena instinctively moved with it, staying between it and the shimmer being suspended in the beam of light. The ship above held its position, humming with a low, resonant tone that felt like it was inside their bones. The collar floated higher, pulsing like a heartbeat, waiting to be claimed. The shimmer being lifted its hand again, summoning the collar to it. The beam brightened, and that's when Dr. Elias Grange threw the cube. The small metal object sailed through the air, end over end, and struck the beam of light. The moment it touched the energy field, the sky rippled like a stone had been dropped in a still pond. The beam flickered, cracked, and then exploded in a burst of white-blue light. The shimmer being dropped from mid-air, hitting the ground. Hard, its form distorting and glitching, no longer smooth and controlled. The collar shattered, its pieces scattered across the forest floor. Everything went silent. Smoke drifted through the clearing, and Lena blinked through the brightness. The alien medics peeked from behind their ship's shields. The soldiers lowered their weapons, stunned. And in the middle of it all stood the wounded creature, no longer hiding, no longer crouched, but upright. A survivor, yes, but more than that. Free. The shimmer being tried to rise. Its limbs twitched, spasmed. It glitched again, its body phasing in and out of view. It let out a sound, high and distorted, not quite pain and not quite rage. But it was fading. Whatever connection it had to the ship was gone, and now it was alone, just as it had tried to make others feel. Then the creature stepped forward. It didn't attack, it didn't growl. It simply looked at the being on the ground. Lena held her breath. The creature leaned close, almost nose to nose with the shimmer being. For a moment nothing moved. Then, softly, almost too low to hear, it let out a single exhale, like forgiveness or release. The shimmer being vanished in a burst of scattered light, either retrieved or dismantled. No one could tell. But it was gone, and the sky, at last, was quiet again. Lena sank to her knees, exhaustion washing over her. The tension broke like a wave crashing into sand. The alien medics slowly emerged from their cover. They approached the creature cautiously. Their devices blinked and flashed with strange colors, and one of them made a long, warbling sound, like asking permission. The creature nodded once. It wasn't a leader. It wasn't a weapon. It was just something that had wanted to live. And now, finally, it could. Dr. Grange knelt beside Lena. His hands were shaking. "That cube was barely stable," he muttered. "I wasn't sure it'd do anything at all." "It did," Lena said, her voice hoarse. Agent Cole walked over, his face unreadable. For a long moment he just stood there, watching the creature move among the medics. Then, without a word, he tapped his comm and called off the alert. "Tell command we're classifying the subject as a diplomatic presence," he said. "Medical. Attention authorized. No detainment. No quarantine." "Are you serious?" one of the soldiers asked. Cole looked at Lena, then at the creature. "I'm not going to be the guy who turns away the one being that just stood up to that thing. Besides, it trusted a human. That's worth something." The creature turned back one last time and looked at Lena. Its gaze was deep, steady. Not alien anymore. Just someone who had been hurt and hoped to never be hunted again. It stepped toward her, leaned down, and gently touched its forehead to hers. And then it followed the alien medics into their ship. As the craft lifted off, Lena felt a strange calm settle over her. The forest was returning to normal. Birds chirped again. Wind moved through the trees like nothing had happened. But she knew something had changed, not just in that clearing, but maybe in the galaxy itself. Later, back at the facility, she sat with Grange over lukewarm coffee. The news hadn't broken yet. It would, eventually. People would ask questions about the ship, the creature, the light in the sky. But Lena hoped they'd also ask what kind of world they wanted Earth to be. "Do you think more will come?" she asked quietly. Grange nodded. "I think that one wasn't the only one running." "And what about the hunters?" she added. He looked thoughtful. "We saw what one of them could do. But I don't think they expected resistance. Not from a vet. Not from us." Lena smiled faintly. "It was just scared." Grange chuckled. "And so were we. But we didn't act like it." He raised his cup. "To unpredictability." Lena clinked hers gently against his. "To humanity. Somewhere, in the sky, beyond clouds and satellites and signals, there was a ripple in the stars. Maybe others would come. Maybe they'd be running. Maybe they'd be watching. But one thing was now certain. Earth wasn't just a blue dot anymore. It was a choice. A chance. And for one hunted soul, it had been hope. That night, as Lena walked outside, she looked up and smiled. Because she knew someone, somewhere out there, was looking back. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them was alone.